the shocking untold story of Nicodemus, the mysterious man who prepared Jesus' body for burial. Few knew what truly happened that night in the shadows of Jerusalem, when whispers twisted like smoke in the streets. The air was thick with fear and uncertainty, yet there stood Nicodemus, a figure cloaked in paradox. He was a Pharisee, a master of the law, yet his heart tugged in another direction, toward the man who spoke of love, light, and salvation. This man, Jesus, had just endured the most brutal death imaginable, and Nicodemus, with trembling hands, would soon embark on an unsanctioned mission. As his footsteps echoed in the dark alleys, fear wrestled with resolve in Nicodemus' chest. The blood of the innocent stained the ground, and the moon hung low, as if grieving for the loss. It was a stark contrast to the wealth and prestige he once relished. He thought of the spices he carried, myrrh and aloes, more costly than gold, telling a story of desperation and hope. What compelled him to risk everything for this unassuming carpenter? Outside the tomb, silence swallowed him whole. The heavy stone door loomed ahead, dark and foreboding. What secrets lay behind it? The place where life had recently fled? The whispers of the crowd played in his mind, the faithful and the doubters, each interpreting the events differently. How could they know what took place in his heart? As he entered, the scent of spices enveloped him, a bittersweet perfume of finality. His heart raced. The weight of responsibility pressed down on him. There in the cold embrace of death lay Jesus, a man who claimed to be the Son of God. Light barely trickled in, casting ghostly shadows over the lifeless body. He hesitated. Memories flooded back. The miracles, the laughter, the profound teachings that rang in his ears. Could this truly be the end? The light flickered as he carefully applied the myrrh, the pungent aroma mixing with the chill of the air. Each touch felt sacred, yet laden with sorrow. Nicodemus fought against the rising tide of anguish in his chest. This was no ordinary burial. It was shrouded in urgency and mystery. The whispers of the crowd echoed louder in his mind, questions surfacing like bubbles in troubled waters. Would anyone understand his actions? Would his reputation shatter into pieces like glass cast from a high tower? As he prepared the body, every gesture felt monumental, an act of defiance against the impending despair. But as he stepped back to look at his work, the unmistakable sound of footsteps startled him. Who dares approach? He thought, dread gripping his heart. The shadows danced, and he held his breath. Could he truly protect the memory of the man who changed his life? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The echo of footsteps merged with the stillness as Nicodemus turned in anticipation. His heart thundered, a drumbeat of dread and resolve. The dim light revealed a figure, Joseph of Arimathea. The air felt charged with the weight of unspoken understanding. Joseph, too, was a man of consequence, a member of the council who had sought an audience with the truth that Jesus embodied. Nicodemus, Joseph whispered, stepping closer, his eyes scanning the tomb. I feared I would find you here. There was a shared weight in his voice, a mingling of grief and defiance. What has been done cannot be undone. In that moment, a fragile bond formed between the two men, both haunted yet transformed by their encounters with the crucified and the forsaken. They were men of stature, yet they chose solidarity in the shadows rather than safety in the light of the day. What shall we do? Nicodemus asked, the urgency draping over them like the heavy cloth spilling from their robes. They hovered, uncertain, around a body that had once breathed life into their hopes. The spices, once symbols of richness, felt more like chains binding them to the grave. "We honor him," Joseph replied, resolve etching lines in his face. "We must ensure that his sacrifice is remembered, not lost in the murmurs of an ignoble end." With a steadying breath, Nicodemus nodded, feeling the churning storm inside him calm to a focused purpose. Together, they began to work, their hands moving in unison. As they prepared the body with care, each gesture became a prayer beseeching the heavens for understanding and strength. Yet as the minutes drifted like leaves on a breeze, Nicodemus was consumed with thoughts that raced through his mind like wildfire. What if they find him? What if this act condemns us? What if we are lost? The questions clawed at the edges of his resolve. Unraveling doubt threatened to ensnare his purpose. Yet something deep within urged him to press on. It was a strange paradox, the way they labored each motion a testimony to faith where logic would have led them to hide. Is there hope beyond this tomb? Nicodemus dared to think, the question both exhilarating and terrifying. He remembered the fervent conversations with Jesus, the teachings that ignited sparks in the depths of his soul. Was it foolish to believe in light after such darkness? As they finished wrapping the body, Joseph paused, placing a gentle hand on Nicodemus' shoulder. "In this act, we transform sorrow into a testament. Together we can kindle a fire that may yet bring warmth to a world grown cold." In those words, Nicodemus glimpsed a glimmer of what might lie beyond despair. Yet a profound silence enveloped the tomb once more. Just as they prepared for departure, an unsettling thought crossed Nicodemus's mind. What will the dawn bring? Is this truly the end, or merely a passage into something much greater? With the heavy stone door closing behind them, Nicodemus felt the burden of eternity resting on his shoulders. Their mission was incomplete. Questions still danced on the tip of his tongue. As shadows loomed longer, the flickering light of hope that Jesus spread began to seem like a far-off, distant star rather than a present reality. Could this story, stained by sorrow, still hold within it the seeds of something divine? And would any of them have the courage to nurture this fragile flame amidst a world washed over by darkness? As dawn broke, the sky was a canvas brushed with shades of gold and rose. Yet for Nicodemus and Joseph, the world outside remained shadowed by uncertainty. They stood before the tomb, the weight of their task settling like a heavy mantle upon their shoulders. Each heartbeat echoed like a mournful bell, a reminder of the sacrifice they had undertaken, reverberating against the stillness of the morning. "Today, we shall face those who question our actions," Joseph stated, his voice steady but low. "The council will not remain silent for long." His eyes darted to the horizon, where the sun struggled to break through the clouds, as though mirroring their turmoil. "What if they turn this against us?" Nicodemus responded, fear threading through his words. The accusations and the whispers, they will seize the moment to strike. His heart raced anew, wavering between the desire to honor Jesus and the instinct for self-preservation. The truth of their decision weighed heavily upon him, each moment layered with unspoken truth and reverberating consequences that we risk everything. Indeed, Joseph admitted, his gaze steadfast. But can we allow the fear of man to silence our faith? Can we permit despair to overtake our hope? There was a fire in his eyes, a spark ignited by the man they mourned. Nicodemus nodded, yet uncertainty lingered. What if this was meant to be a different path? What if we are merely players in a design far greater than we can perceive? His mind settled into the teachings of Jesus, where he had often heard echoes of divine purpose interwoven with dissatisfaction at the earthly systems that held sway as the light increased, illuminating the stone and dust of the path ahead. Nicodemus and Joseph moved, their steps echoing softly along the hard ground. Each footfall became a solemn reminder of their choice, a testament to their quiet rebellion against a tide that wished to suffocate the memory of the man from Nazareth. As they approached the city's gates, their hearts beat in sync with the rising sun, a stubborn insistence to bear witness to the truth that lay buried beneath fear and sorrow. There, on the streets of Jerusalem, The murmurs of anxiety and speculation washed over the people, a tide that threatened to drown the fragile thread of hope they carried. Behold, the temple is shaken, and the earth has trembled. A voice called out amidst the gathered crowd, echoing from the corners of alleys and doorways. The word spread like wildfire, fueling an atmosphere thick with anticipation and dread. Was it merely the aftermath of a crucifixion that shook their beliefs, or was there something more, an unseen force altering the very fabric of their existence? Joseph and Nicodemus exchanged glances, each mirroring confusion and hope intertwined. What if this stir is a spark of greater truth? Joseph postulated. Could it be evidence that the veil between despair and hope is thinner than we believe? Their breath caught, and in that fleeting moment, an unutterable realization crept over them. Perhaps their actions were more than just a tribute to a lost leader. What if they were vital to the unfolding of a story that had just begun? The flickering flame of their faith ignited amidst the chaos, casting light on the uncertainty that surrounded them. Yet, even as they stepped into the echoing marketplace, a question clung to the edges of their resolve. If death has not confined this truth, what then shall arise from the shadows? What shall be the response of a world unwilling to let go of its chains? As they ventured toward an uncertain horizon, filled with implications they could hardly fathom, the dawn began to whisper promises of transformation. Yet, overshadowing their hearts was the provocative inquiry of what the day might unveil. Would they embrace the truth that emerged, or would they falter under the weight of doubt? As the sun climbed higher into the azure expanse, casting long shadows that danced across the stones of Jerusalem, Nicodemus and Joseph pressed on, each step laden with the gravity of their undertaking. The murmurs in the marketplace swirled around them like a restless wind, and the faces of the people, painted with fear and speculation, bore witness to the disquiet that enveloped the city. The disciples, now scattered like leaves before the storm, had yet to absorb the full weight of their loss. The wounds inflicted by betrayal had cut deep, and sorrow tainted their hearts. Nicodemus could almost feel their anguish ripple through the air, a palpable testament to the fear gripping all they had once held dear. Yes, they passed women in mourning, their cries rising in a dissonant chorus. Nicodemus felt an urge to speak to them of hope, to remind them of the man whose life had been a testament to love and compassion. But his voice seemed to falter, muffled by the enormity of the moment and the fear of misunderstanding. What if he speaks yet in the silence? He whispered to Joseph, though he could not yet comprehend what that silence might yield. Joseph, ever the stalwart companion, looked deeply into Nicodemus's eyes. Sometimes the truth lies in the stillness, waiting for hearts bold enough to listen. He replied thoughtfully, his hand resting lightly on the warm stone wall beside them. Yet will our voices be strong enough to resist the coming darkness? Just then, a loud gasp echoed around them as a group of men approached, their robes billowing with urgency. Among them was Caiaphas, the high priest, his pallor almost ghostly against the vibrant colors of the marketplace. "Flee," he proclaimed, his voice a bitter blade in the air. "Fear has taken root. The man put to death has become a phantom. More not, for he is but a remnant of what we have cast aside." The crowd surged like a tide, their eyes wide with the terror of rumors now taking root off visions seen in dreams, of whispers carried on the winds. Nicodemus's heart sank deeper as he observed the faces, torn between allegiance and dread. Was this chaos what they had feared, or a manifestation of something more divine? Did they not see? He thought bitterly that they risked the very hope they cling to. As they pushed through the throngs, Joseph pulled Nicodemus aside into a quiet corner, where ancient stones watched over them as silent witnesses. "We must gather those who remain rooted in truth," he urged, urgency threading his words. "There are still hearts that yearn for the courage to confront fear with faith. But will it matter?" Nicodemus questioned, the shadows of doubt flickering within him. Will our efforts be met with understanding, or will our names become synonymous with heresy? The path of truth diverges dangerously close to the brink of peril. Before Joseph could respond, A voice echoed from the back of their minds, an unmistakable whisper of familiarity, resonant with authority and love. Be not afraid, for what is unseen often holds the greatest truth. Both men turned, looking around in a confused search for the source. Perhaps it was the memory of Jesus urging them onward, or merely an echo of their own convictions. Suddenly, a young girl appeared, her hair dancing with the wind, brightened by the sunlight breaking through the clouds. In her hands, she clutched a small woven basket filled with herbs and spices. "You men of courage," she called, her voice piercing through the disquiet. "Will you not join our gathering in honor of what has been lost? Let not the darkness dull the light he has borne." Nicodemus felt a flicker of hope ignite in his heart. Could it be that even the most vulnerable among them recognized the call to stand firm in the face of despair? "Perhaps together we can cultivate seeds of hope," he mused, and awaken spirits dimmed by sorrow. The two men watched as the girl slipped through the crowd, her spirit unyielding and bright. In her wake, whispers of conviction floated through the air. What, then, should rise from the ashes of despair? What new paths might emerge? From the resolve of those who dared to tread where others feared to go. As they stepped back into the bustling streets of Jerusalem, Nicodemus and Joseph became aware of the weight of their purpose. Could they, too, uncover a greater truth among the shards of shattered expectations? Or would the very burden of their faith become a stumbling block in the face of a world intent on oblivion? As the evening sun began its descent, draping the city in hues of amber and indigo, the murmurs of the marketplace softened to an anxious whisper. The weight of the day pressed heavily upon Nicodemus and Joseph as they made their way toward the place where they had gathered, a humble dwelling on the outskirts, away from the watchful eyes of those who harbored scorn for all who were disenchanted by the crucifixion. The young girl's words lingered in Nicodemus's mind, a bright light in the gathering gloom. He clung to the hope she represented, yet doubt clung to him like shadow upon stone. How can we honor what has been lost? He pondered aloud as they approached their meeting room, thick with dust and memory. Joseph laid a hand on his shoulder. "We bring our hearts and our faith. Perhaps even a spark of his spirit remains within our actions. We must share our truth, the truth he showed us," he replied firmly. There can be no resurrection of hope without the crucible of grief. Inside, a small group awaited them, weary yet resolute faces bowed in silent prayer. Like Nicodemus and Joseph, these were men and women marked by loss yet unyielded by despair. They sensed, as did Nicodemus, that something deep and transformative was brewing within their souls, like the deep rumblings of an earthquake felt before it rends the earth. "Let us weave our stories together," Joseph implored as he took his place at the center of the room. "Let us light candles for the truth we found in him. We must remember the tumbling of the stones and the pressing of the hands that healed, the words spoken softly yet firmly in a world filled with loud uncertainty." As the room gathered around him, Nicodemus felt compelled to share. With a voice that faltered near the edges, he began recounting the nights spent in the shadows of the temple, exchanging thoughts with the Master, risking everything in pursuit of wisdom. In every question asked, every parable spoken, he unveiled not just the mind but the heart of God. In that unfolding, "I found my hope." A murmur of agreement rippled through the group, but there was also a lingering fear. What good was hope when its bearer was gone? They exchanged glances, each wrestling silently with their own thoughts, their own fears. Could they recount the miracles? Could they impart the message of love that transcended their sorrow? An elder woman, her face etched with both age and resolve, rose with slow dignity. "We speak, yes, but action must follow," she began, her voice steady despite the tremors of grief. "Friends may listen to echoes of courage, yet we must not remain idle. We must revisit the places where he walked. His footprints are still there, imprinted upon our hearts like unique stones on a path. We cannot abandon that way." Encouraged, Nicodemus felt a surge of energy propel him forward. "Then let us bear witness," he said, his words gathering strength. Let us go out into the night and gather those who remain in the shadows. They need not perish in the dark when we carry within us the flame of what he ignited. The group nodded, and murmurs of determination filled the space. As they deliberated on how best to reach out, a sudden gust of wind swept through the open window, causing the flickering candles to dance wildly. It felt alive, as though the very air was charged with the presence of something greater. What if, amidst our gathering of the lost, we discover the unseen? Joseph suggested, his voice dropping to a hushed tone filled with reverence. What if the silence holds the key to the resurrection of our faith? Eager questions buzzed among them, like bees above a blooming flower. It was a mingling of their stories, their fears, and their flickering hopes that created a purpose far beyond themselves. They spoke of visiting the tomb, laying flowers and lighting candles in reverence, not merely for the body buried, but for the love that would not stay among the stones. Yet as they conversed, a deeper question dawned upon Nicodemus. What did it mean to truly carry the message of the Master beyond the confines of their hearts? Would they find strength together in faith, or would the darkness outside swallow them whole? As thoughts cascaded through the minds of those gathered, Nicodemus closed his eyes momentarily, allowing himself to feel the weight of their anticipation. Could resurrection be more than the return of the body? Could it be found within the unity of those who dared to hold onto love against a world filled with hate? The flicker of candlelight illuminated the resolve upon their faces, yet shadows still loomed in the corners of their minds. Would they emerge as bearers of hope, or simply leave it buried beneath their sorrow? As the conversation shifted and deepened, an unsettling silence took hold of the gathering. The flickering candlelight cast shadows that danced on the walls like wraiths cloaked in uncertainty. Outside, the night deepened, and the once vibrant sounds of the city dwindled to a stillness that wrapped around them like a shroud. Joseph watched his friends' faces, illuminated by the wavering light. We must ask ourselves, he began, his voice steady but soft, what we are truly seeking in our recalling of his presence. Is it merely remembrance, or is it something more? His words echoed in the hollow of their hearts, invoking a restless urgency to explore their faith more profoundly. Suddenly, from a hidden corner of the room, a voice broke through the contemplative silence. It was a young man, barely old enough to have shared in the deepest sorrows of life, yet capable of profound insight. If hope is alive in our hearts, then what stops us from breathing life into it? He looked around at the solemn faces, sensing the heaviness that weighed them down. We are paralyzed by our grief, but Jesus taught us that in love there exists a sacred resilience. Should we not seek to embody that very lesson? What the young man said struck a chord within Nicodemus. The Master often spoke of new life springing forth, of seeds buried in the ground that rise again. He told us that from death springs forth life. Nicodemus reflected aloud, and perhaps within our collective grief lies the soil in which we can plant the seeds of faith and action. His voice grew stronger, resonating with the truth that had been hidden beneath layers of sorrow. The elder woman nodded thoughtfully. But how do we cultivate that soil? She asked, her face knitted in concentration. We have been left vulnerable, stripped of the companionship that strengthened us. The world beyond these walls feels like a tempest, threatening to uproot the very seeds we cherish. Joseph interjected, perhaps we must first confront our fears. Let us not diminish our grief, nor should we let it bind us. Instead, we can draw strength from each remembrance we share, stitching together a tapestry of what he imparted. Each act of remembrance can be a step toward redemption that ate that moment. Nicodemus felt an urge to stand once again. With renewed vigor, he spoke of the night when he first questioned Jesus beneath the cloak of darkness, a night rich with dialogue, hidden meanings, and profound teachings. In that exchange, I uncovered the possibility of rebirth, not just for the body but for the soul. It began my journey toward understanding and seeking more. Can our stories now act as a beacon for others? Can we invite the lost to join us on this path? The group grew animated, their voices chiming in unison, finding strength in their shared vulnerability. Let us dare to go to the tomb, not out of despair, but to rise in solidarity with our convictions. Someone exclaimed, "Let us light a fire of remembrance, a flame that stirs the hearts of those shrouded in darkness." Yet, even as they filled the room with budding enthusiasm, Nicodemus sensed an underlying current of doubt still tethering them back. "But do we have the courage?" he asked, voicing the unspoken apprehensions that lingered like the scent of incense. "What if our witness is met with scorn? How do we unfurl our convictions before a world that may not understand our longings?" As his words hung in the air, a sense of gravity settled upon the group. Each face reflected back to him a mirror of their own fears. The flame within flickered as they wrestled with their purpose against the weight of the world outside. The wind began to whisper through the window again, rustling the curtain like a gentle reminder from the unseen realm. The very atmosphere seemed to vibrate, echoing words of encouragement, urging them to take one step forward into the unknown. In the depths of this crisis of faith, Nicodemus raised a hand of silent plea for unity. Let us bind our hearts and actions together, stepping forward in faith, even when the path is unclear. Shall we venture forth tomorrow, lighting candles in the darkness, sharing memories, and sharing new stories? As they clung to the flickering flames of hope, a question lingered in the air like smoke. How could they carry forth the message of love and renewal into a world marked by doubt and despair? And what awaited them in the shadows of the tomb, the place of loss mixed with the promise of rebirth? The air within the room felt thick with unspoken promises and latent fears as dawn approached. The shadows of night began to fade, giving way to a tentative glow filtering through the window, hinting at the world reborn anew each day. The group gathered, hands intertwined, seeking comfort in their shared resolve to face the coming day. Joseph, his eyes glistening with a sense of purpose, spoke first. "Today we honor not only our memories, but also the possibility of awakening faith. We must dare to tread the path that leads us to Him. Our actions can be the light that pierces the darkness." As they prepared to leave, Nicodemus found himself haunted by the memories of the day Jesus himself had been laid to rest. The weight of that moment still pressed heavily on his heart, overshadowed by his attempts to reconcile the storm of emotions that threatened to engulf him. What would he say if he encountered the world's endless questions? Would he be prepared to testify to the depths of love he had witnessed, even in the face of death? He shared his concern with the group. When we reach the tomb, the solemnity of what transpired there will likely overwhelm us. We cannot shy away from the pain, for it is in the acceptance of sorrow that we can truly understand the power of love. The elder woman, whose hand now rested on his shoulder, replied with encouraging wisdom, "Perhaps we should not approach with fear, but with reverence. Each step can be a prayer, each thought a tribute to his life and the legacy left behind. Could we perhaps even find beauty in the desolation?" The young man from the hidden corner, whose voice had sparked so much courage, chimed in again. "Let us remember, the journey holds as much significance as the destination. In our vulnerability, we create a sacred space where hope can flourish. Who knows what will be revealed when we gather there in unity?" A unified determination swelled in the room, igniting a fire within them. They stepped outside as the first rays of sunlight sliced through the horizon, the dawn enveloping them in warmth. The city around them appeared reborn, yet the murmur of doubt still lingered in the shadows behind them, haunting them like a specter. Walking towards the tomb, the group exchanged quiet glances, thoughts unspoken yet understood. Each person carried their own private torments, memories of the final words shared, the last embrace given. Their hearts beat as one while they placed foot upon foot, edging closer to the threshold of grief, transformed into hope. As they reached the entrance, the sight of the sealed stone was daunting. The path before them was strewn with thorns. Fear, uncertainty, and the specter of desolation surrounded them. Nicodemus felt an echo of the Master's words wash over him like a balm. In the world, you will have trouble. But take heart, I have overcome the world. In that moment, they collectively inhaled, drawing in the strength of his memory and exhaling their doubts. They were not merely walking toward the grave. They were embarking on a journey to reclaim the light that existed in every breath of their memories. Gathering around the stone entrance, they lit candles small but vigorous flames flickering bravely against the morning breeze. The light cast their shadows long and dancing across the ground, a metaphor for the lives they sought to illuminate, even amidst the darkness. The light shall stoke the embers of remembrance, and where there is remembrance, there is the chance for resurrection, Joseph declared, folding his hands together as a small act of solidarity. But as they prepared to share their stories, as they readied themselves to speak of love and hope, Nicodemus felt a deepening tremor of unease stitched into the fabric of their gathering. What if the world chooses not to see? What if our words fall upon deaf ears, swallowed by the echoes of a society that rejects the very notion of grace? In the midst of burning candles lighting the path before them, the question loomed large and unanswered: how could they ensure their message reached the hearts of those burdened by isolation? And as they peered into the abyss of the tomb, could they fathom the mysteries waiting to unfold just beyond the threshold? As the last words of Nicodemus hung in the air, a stillness enveloped the group. Each flickering candle seemed to mimic the pulse of their collective heart, steady yet fragile, breathing life into the space where sorrow and hope coexisted. For a moment, the wind held its breath, and even the distant sounds of the bustling city faded into a hushed reverence. Joseph, sensing the weight of doubt gathering at the edges of their spirit, stepped forward into the illuminated ring their flickering flames created. We stand upon sacred ground, my friends. Each one of us holds a piece of his story, a thread in this tapestry woven through faith and love. Let us share openly, without the shadows of hesitation, for it is herein the light of our remembrance that truth can shine brightest. With a nod of encouragement from Joseph, one of the women in the group, Miriam, took a deep breath and began to speak of her memories in the presence of Jesus. I recall the moments when he transformed the ordinary into the extraordinary, turning water into wine. Calming storms with a word, and I still hear the echo of his laughter filling the air around him. His spirit ignited joy in the hearts of those who lingered near. How can we not share that light with others? Her words sparked a fire of recollection within Nicodemus, who began to speak of the night he had sought Jesus cloaked in darkness and uncertainty, yet drawn towards the illuminating wisdom that emerged from their conversation. His words challenged the very foundation of my understanding. He ventured, his voice steadier than he felt inside, and it was only in the folds of our dialogue that I began to grasp the depth of his love, a love that extended beyond the healing of the sick and the freeing of souls from bondage. It spoke the language of acceptance in a world rife with division. Each person took their turn to share their stories. The wounds of grief began to mend under the weight of their shared experiences. Yet, as they journeyed deeper into their reflections, Nicodemus felt a persistent tension pulling at his heart, a reluctant echo of unanswered questions about the true power of resurrection. Was it merely a pledge of hope, or could it be a call for transformation that could stir the hearts of many beyond their small circle? As the collective memories swelled, the group's light seemed to ignite a different flame within the darkened entrance of the tomb. It flickered with a life of its own, infused with the stories woven from the fabric of love and longing. And it was then, as the glow danced at the mouth of the cave, that Nicodemus confronted the tremors of his own spirit. Was there resolve enough to pierce the heavy veil of doubt and illuminate the path for others? The echo of their words filled the air, creating a fragile bridge between their spirits and the world beyond. But deep within him, the realization loomed: would their tales be met with belief or skepticism? Would these events be seen as mere legend or powerful truths capable of igniting faith? As they paused, drawn together by the swirling energy of their hopes and fears, Nicodemus dared to voice his lingering concern. Despite our unity and passion, what design has God woven through us? Is there a greater purpose waiting for us within this very tomb, the heart of despair and the cradle of hope? Can we stand witness to the mystery that life might be birthed anew, even here among the shadows? And so, as they glimmered in the light of their shared memories, a single question surged through the embers of the gathering: how far would their collective hope reach beyond the tomb's threshold? And would they truly be ready to embrace the newfound life that lay quietly entwined within the mysteries of their faith? As the flickering light danced against the cold stone walls, an unexpected hush fell over the gathering. The warmth of their shared memories lingered in the air, but deep within each of their hearts, the presence of unspoken fears mingled with the scent of myrrh and aloes that Nicodemus had brought, the fragrant offering for Jesus' burial. Miriam's voice, still resonating with the joy of her recollections, gradually gave way to a somber contemplation. She looked at Nicodemus and asked, "There's a weight to hope, is there not? What if this moment is a threshold? Are we not called to confront not just the shadows, but also the depth of our belief?" Her inquiry hung in the air, heavy yet rich with potential. Joseph, always the one who sought balance amid turmoil, adjusted his posture as if to position himself not only as a leader, but as a seeker alongside his friends. Perhaps, he suggested softly, the preparation of his body speaks volumes. We yearn for resurrection, yet we are tethered to the reality of his death. What does this teach us about embracing our own fears, our own doubts? Are we prepared to accept that loss is a part of life, while yearning for what comes after? The night deepened, and as the moon anchored itself in the sky, casting silver shadows across the ground, Nicodemus felt a stirring within him. He recalled the gentle yet piercing gaze of Jesus, capable of seeing through facades and into the very marrow of a man's soul. There was a grace in that gaze, an invitation to go deeper, and Nicodemus sensed a lingering call within Ida, reminder that the journey of understanding would not end simply with the act of laying his body to rest. "I often ponder this," Nicodemus replied, his voice dipping into the solemnity of the moment, "that perhaps in our act of preparing the body, we were not only honoring him, but also engaging with the profound mystery of death itself. We wrestle with grief. Yet what if this grieving is not the end, but merely the beginning of something vast and unknowable?" He paused, looking at each face illuminated by the flickering flames. Is grief a pathway to a deeper understanding of love and life? Could it be that in embracing our sorrow, we are also opening ourselves to the unimaginable possibility of transformation? A gentle breeze poured into the gathering, reminding them of the world beyond the tomb. It carried whispers of hope mingled with uncertainty, each breath an acknowledgement of the duality that existence often presents. Nicodemus took a step further into this sacred unraveling. When he said, "I am the resurrection and the life," was he not inviting us to reconcile with both death and life? Is the echo of his resurrection a call for us to change how we see our own mortality? How can we give voice to our hope without first acknowledging the losses that have shaped it? Miriam's brow furrowed as she embraced this perspective. "But our world is full of those who refuse to believe," she said, almost pleadingly. "What if we hold on to these truths, yet find ourselves mocked or rejected for our faith in the unseen? How do we reconcile our journey when the others see only darkness?" With a thoughtful nod, Joseph responded, "Now, at the edge of this tomb, we stand as witnesses not only of death but of unity. Perhaps embracing our doubts openly, sharing our fears instead of hiding them, will illuminate pathways where shadows linger. If we allow our vulnerabilities to coexist with our hopes, can we not cultivate a space where belief has the chance to awaken?" The group fell silent as they reflected on the strength found in vulnerability, each grappling with their burdens. Nicodemus felt the pull of his own unanswered questions. Could their collective faith reach those beyond the edge of their flickering light? Would they step boldly into their role as bearers of a message that flickered with potential, yet was shrouded in uncertainty? As the flame began to dim, its light still casting shadows upon their thoughts, he knew that any answer would require a journey beyond the threshold of belief and embrace of the unknown. In the heart of the tomb, standing at the intersection of despair and hope, Nicodemus took a breath, sensing the stirring of something divine. What if, through their action of remembrance, what they feared could be transformed into a powerful testimony? Would they dare to step into the unfolding mystery, where resurrection's promise awaited beyond the door? As dawn broke over Jerusalem, casting its golden rays upon the stone entrance of the tomb, Nicodemus, Joseph, and their group stood together, hearts entwined in a fragile yet fiery unity. They had shared their stories, relived their memories, and together wrestled with the emotions that surrounded their beloved teacher. Each candle flickered with the heartbeat of hope, illuminating a path forward they could scarcely predict but felt compelled to explore. With resolute hearts, they huddled near the entrance, the air thick with anticipation and a hint of trepidation. Nicodemus felt a spark blossoming within, an unexpected blend of lightness and gravity. In the past few days, we have mourned him, he began, his voice a steady whisper, but perhaps today we can remember him not in silence, but in action. Let us embody the love he taught us. Miriam's poignant gaze met his, fierce and unwavering. "What do you mean?" she asked, curiosity igniting in her tone. "Perhaps we do not need to await the return of the light," Nicodemus offered, glancing at each face illuminated by the soft glow of their candles. "Instead, we can become the light. We can kindle hope in those who have lost everything to despair." Joseph stepped forward, emboldened by Nicodemus' words. "Yes, we shall tell the story of his love to a world shrouded in darkness. We must declare the truth of his teachings and show the love that flowed from him, the love that transcends even death." A sense of awe rippled through their gathering as weighty silence descended. The world outside was marked by grief and suspicion, but in that moment, courage began to unfurl within their hearts. The tombless void that had once felt suffocating now appeared to be a sacred space, a portal for transformation. "Gather your candles, friends," whispered Nicodemus. "Let us step forth into the daylight and show what faith can create amid doubt. If we carry his spirit within us, we will not just remember him. We will live out his message of love." The group stood resolutely, lighted candles in hand. They adorned their path with flickers of warmth and courage. Together, they walked toward the place where Jesus had walked, into the city that had mourned him, prepared to transform sorrow into a symphony of hope. Each step felt heavier yet lighter, burdened by the weight of loss, yet buoyed by the promise of rebirth. As they moved through the crowded market, whispers flickered like firelight in the wind. "Look there," they approached the tomb. "They still believe." Murmurings enveloped them, some filled with scorn, others with curiosity. But as they drew closer to the heart of the city, a palpable tension washed over them. Alive with potential, they could see the center of the bustling crowd. Nicodemus and Joseph found the eyes of their compatriots, the disciples, scattered yet still tethered by memory and love. They looked weathered, but alive with questions hanging in the air like clouds before a storm. "What now?" John, one of the younger disciples, asked, gripping the hands of others who stood close. "We witnessed the end of the hope we thought we had. What could possibly arise from such despair?" With candles lit, Nicodemus felt compelled to speak. "We honor what has been lost, yes, but we must first grasp what was given. Life was given to all of us in abundance, peace, love, and forgiveness. He has shown us that love transcends even death. And now, we are called to carry that torch with fervor." His fervent words ignited a responsive spark ignited within the gathered crowd, familiar faces brightening with memories of laughter, healing, and grace. The promise of resurrection had transformed from an abstract hope into a tangible truth. What if our actions today sow seeds for tomorrow? Another disciple raised a voice filled with newfound conviction. The world needs to see they're not alone. We are not alone. Invigorated by each other's spirit, the once fearful band began to act as one. As they approached the center of Jerusalem, they sought the stories of love, the stories of hearts that birth miracles. "Stand with us," Nicodemus called, raising his candle high. "Come forth as we remember together, not as broken fragments, but as a united heart willing to shine the light of truth into the world." And then, before their eyes, the unthinkable began to unfold. Those lost in despair turned toward them, lost sheep seeking shepherds. The flickering flames of hope spread through the gathering as their combined voices echoed with newfound fervor. People stepped out from the shadows of grief, drawn by the warmth radiating from those willing to share their truth. Among them was the young girl who had first offered them hope, her spirit unyielding as she stepped up to light her own candle among theirs. "We shall tell the stories of love. We shall rekindle the belief that death does not have the final word," she declared, her eyes sparkling with light. In that moment, Nicodemus felt the weight of unexplainable joy wash over him. The assembly, once fragmented and scattered, formed a bond anew, a tapestry woven from sorrow, yet born of resilience. As the sun rose higher, their voices melded into a powerful proclamation of hope, reverberating through the streets of Jerusalem. "He is love. He is life. We shall not forget." The promise of resurrection had become palpable, reverberating in the souls of those gathered. No longer merely a distant memory, but a shared reality, one that called forth the courage to walk boldly in faith. It flowed within them, igniting courage and empowering them to herald the divine narrative into the everyday lives of all who would listen. And as they stood witness to that day, amidst the shadows of doubt and decay, they understood a profound truth. Love could not merely be entombed. It must be carried forth. This was the final metamorphosis of their faith, the dawning awareness that every mortal end could become a sacred beginning. Thus, they left the tomb behind, armed with stories and flickering flames, ready to stand against the tide of despair. For together, they had learned that resurrection isn't just a distant promise, but an ever-present reality crafted through lives intertwined with hope, a luminous legacy meant to be kindled anew with each sunrise. Their story was only just beginning, and in their hearts the next words took root. "We shall not fear the darkness, for what we carry now can light the way not just for ourselves, but for all who wander lost. We are resurrection, here and now,